Bigfoot in there? Finally, we'll find the truth.
Oh my God.
A revelation that was never supposed to escape the forest. What happens when the calmest voice on a paranormal investigation suddenly becomes the source of the most disturbing confession the show has ever faced? That's the question Bryce Johnson forced into the open the moment he revealed that Expedition Bigfoot had been withholding something significant, something that the Discovery Channel, according to him, never expected the public to hear. Everything started during the production of a new season filmed in Washington State, a region with towering trees, low light, heavy mist, and more reported sightings than anywhere else on the continent. According to Bryce, the crew was not alone in those woods. From their first night, they sensed activity closing in around camp. Footsteps, heavy and purposeful, moved around them. Branches snapped in ways that suggested intention rather than accident. Even distant guttural sounds drifted through the dark in patterns that made Bryce question whether they were dealing with instinctual wildlife or something with a level of awareness. The next morning confirmed that instinct. Reviewing thermal footage revealed a shape that didn't match any known animal form. Tall, upright, and fleeting, disappearing into thick brush like a figure aware of being watched. In the past, such a sighting would have been examined, debated, and replayed. Yet when Bryce demanded a deeper analysis, he discovered the footage had vanished. Not corrupted, not misplaced. Gone.
Scary and helpless all at the same time because something didn't want us here.
And this just started happening a couple weeks ago?
A little over a couple weeks ago, because about 2 weeks ago is when everybody finally just had enough and had to get out of here.
And that was the moment he realized these events weren't isolated mistakes. Something was interfering with the investigation. Something that wanted certain discoveries erased before anyone else could see them. Patterns hidden between the trees and screens. Once Bryce recognized there was a missing piece to the story, he began noticing patterns in the forest that didn't appear on the show. He kept private notes, something he had never needed before. He recorded the unsettling flashes of light between treetops that didn't resemble reflections, didn't match drones, and didn't behave like distant lanterns. These weren't ordinary flickers. They appeared in intervals that felt intentional, almost like signals exchanged across the canopy. Then came the whispers, distorted, eerie, and uncanny in their ability to mimic crew voices. When the team turned toward the source, the forest stood silent, unbroken, as if mocking the idea of movement. Bryce described the sensation of being watched, not by an animal following instinct, but by something evaluating them with intelligence, something assessing their presence with the same curiosity they brought to their search. This realization came during the third week in Olympic National Forest. While performing a late-night perimeter check, one of the cameramen captured an image unlike anything they had encountered. Heat signatures danced irregularly between the trees, and when zoomed in, an 8-foot figure materialized on the thermal display. Silent. Watching.
Did you see the face, or?
No, it was profile to me, so
Yeah.
no face detail at all. It took 4 steps, hit the fence line on the other side of the road, and disappeared. That was it.
Its movement didn't mimic any native species, and its form appeared unstable, flickering at the edges as though it wasn't fully solid. Before the team could understand what they were witnessing, static ripped through their equipment. Screeching audio drowned the air. Every device shut down simultaneously. The blackout lasted 20 minutes. When systems revived, the footage was intact but fragile. Bryce insisted on backing it up immediately, splitting the responsibility between his personal laptop and the production drive. Yet by the next morning, both copies were wiped clean, reformatted at the exact same moment. It didn't matter where the data had been stored. Something or someone had accessed and erased it. When he confronted production, he was met with calm explanations about moisture or magnetic interference. But those excuses collapsed the moment the lead cameraman mentioned the unmarked vehicles seen near the camp. Vehicles no one recognized that vanished before daylight. The hidden coordinates that changed the mission. The turning point came when Bryce's skepticism fully dissolved. He started reviewing not only footage, but every technical detail connected to the production. That's when he found a hidden folder buried inside the encrypted server, Northwind Access. Within it were coordinates that contradicted every documented filming location. They pointed to a region that, on paper, didn't exist. When Bryce checked satellite images, the terrain blurred halfway through, as if intentionally redacted. Producers shut him down the moment he raised questions, insisting the coordinates marked government-owned private land. But that explanation unraveled when a former production assistant, a man who had worked on the show during earlier seasons, quietly revealed that the crew had once filmed in that same region under military escort. He explained that they had been allowed access for only a single day during Season 2 because satellite imaging had detected a thermal anomaly moving across miles of dense forest within hours. What unsettled Bryce most was the assistant's final admission. The anomaly they followed had emitted a type of electromagnetic interference strong enough to drain drones instantly. It wasn't an animal sighting. It wasn't random. It behaved like something structured, something powered, and that detail aligned uncomfortably well with the flickering creature they had captured on thermal cameras weeks earlier. From that moment on, Bryce understood that Expedition Bigfoot wasn't just documenting folklore. They were walking into restricted territories tied to classified research, places where something non-human may have been observed long before the show ever existed. The pressure that turned to paranoia. Once Bryce uncovered the hidden coordinates, the tension among the team escalated rapidly. Conversations that once flowed freely became careful and clipped. Crew members stopped discussing findings openly, especially around cameras. Producers enforced new rules about reviewing footage before anyone else could access it. Even ordinary moments began to feel monitored. What had once been a collaborative search started to feel like a controlled environment. Everyone sensed it. Everyone felt the pressure tightening around the investigation. And for Bryce, this growing sense of surveillance marked the moment he realized they had crossed an invisible boundary, one that someone else was waiting to enforce. The night the forest took someone and refused to give him back. After Bryce uncovered the hidden coordinates and the tension spread through the crew like a fog no one could escape, the investigation reached a breaking point. It happened late in November, in a stretch of wilderness that already felt uneasy. The team had set up camp near a ridge overlooking a valley thick with fog, heavy enough to swallow the treetops whole. Bryce, Ronnie LeBlanc, and a few others were preparing for a night surveillance run, another routine task meant to collect thermal angles, drone scans, and anything the forest was willing to give them. But the forest had its own plans. One of their drone operators, Chris Hayden, had left just half an hour earlier to position a new angle. He was experienced, calm, and rarely strayed from procedure. Yet when they tried to radio him, his walkie-talkie stayed silent. No static, no interference. Just an absence far heavier than it should have been. Assuming another equipment problem, they attempted to track his GPS coordinates, but the moment they pulled up the location logs, every assumption collapsed. Chris's signal didn't drift in a predictable direction or fade gradually like a dead battery. It jumped. It pinged a quarter-mile east of camp for a few seconds, then abruptly relocated 4 miles north, an impossible distance in the time frame. And then, without warning, his signal vanished, gone from the system entirely. Bryce, Ronnie, and 2 others immediately went searching. Flashlights cut through the fog, slicing across uneven ground. Every snapped twig felt sharper, every breath heavier. When they reached the last known location, the scene didn't feel like an accident or a malfunction. Chris's drone lay on the ground, still powered on, its rotors slowly spinning against the dirt as if it had been dropped mid-flight. Nearby, his headset rested beside a tree, snapped clean in half. Not dropped, not cracked, broken with force, the kind of force that implied something had crushed it. The same afternoon, Bryce was handed a statement to read for the cameras. It claimed Chris had left due to a personal emergency, a lie so obvious he couldn't force himself to say it. Bryce insisted. Chris didn't walk off, and something had taken him. Days later, the footage from that night, the search, the drone, the broken headset, vanished from the archives, replaced with meaningless filler shots, signals from the unknown, and a warning hidden in the static. The disappearance left Bryce unable to sleep. His thoughts spiraled into a maze of unanswered questions. Why erase every trace of Chris? Why replace the truth with a flimsy story? And why did the new advisors, who showed up without introduction, monitor the team with silent precision? None of them had been part of the original production. Their presence was explained as security, yet their badges lacked company names, and their faces showed no familiarity with the show they were supposedly protecting. Then Bryce stumbled upon something even more unnerving. While combing through leftover backup files, he uncovered audio data buried beneath layers of noise. At first it sounded like interference, nothing more than random static, but when he slowed the recording down, a rhythmic pulse emerged, a repeating pattern, something structured. Bryce sent the audio to a trusted sound engineer he'd worked with before, someone familiar with frequencies and anomalies. The reply came back in a single encrypted message. "You're not supposed to have this. It's a code, and it's human-made." The supposed static wasn't random. It contained coordinates hidden within the sequence of tones, coordinates inside restricted territory at Fort Lewis, Washington, a military testing ground. And the most chilling realization was how close those coordinates were to Chris's final signal, only 12 meters away. Something, or someone, had tried to send a message no one was meant to decode. But it didn't stop there. Bryce soon received another anonymous text. "You're getting too close, Johnson. Stop decoding what you don't understand." A warning, or a threat. One that followed him into every waking moment. His hotel key failed. His phone died overnight even when powered off. An unmarked SUV began appearing behind him on long interstate drives. Then came the final crack. Someone sent him photos. Pictures of him standing in the woods the night Chris disappeared. Photos he knew weren't taken by anyone on his team. Someone else had been there. The confession that leaked and shook the community. After weeks of pressure building around him like a tightening wire, Bryce finally snapped, but not on camera, not during filming. His breaking point came during a live stream meant to promote the new season. Viewers immediately noticed something was different. His smile was stiff. His eyes darted off-screen, the way someone glances toward a door they expect will burst open at any moment. He cut the live stream short, citing a technical problem. But less than an hour later, a private audio clip began circulating online. A leaked recording, apparently captured during a conversation between Bryce and a close friend in production. In it, Bryce admitted he had been warned to stop asking questions about the missing footage, the restricted coordinates, and the erased evidence. And he clarified the warning didn't come from the network. It came from someone above them, higher up, completely outside the world of television. He revealed his hotel room key had inexplicably stopped working. His phone drained power even when turned off, and the SUV tailing him wasn't a coincidence. It had followed him from Los Angeles all the way to Oregon. Then came the part that left the paranormal community frozen. Bryce described receiving photos of himself from that night in the forest, photos taken at angles the Expedition Bigfoot crew could not have captured. Someone else had been monitoring them in real time. It was no longer entertainment. It was a warning, return to the forest, and a message that defied nature. After his fragile reappearance, Bryce wasn't done. Despite everything, the warnings, the surveillance, the fear, he returned to the last known filming location with a small group of trusted colleagues. These weren't current crew members. They were people who had worked with him in earlier seasons, before the secrecy started. They traveled deep into the woods near Mount Hood, the same area tied to episodes that mysteriously vanished from rotation. The initial hours felt familiar. Drone flights, tracking gear, static cameras. But soon, reality began to warp around them. Compass readings reversed. Drone feeds froze mid-air. Night sounds emerged that didn't match any species native to the region. Then, at exactly 2:47 a.m., a massive heat signature appeared on their thermal scanner. A bipedal shape, walking upright, but radiating a temperature far below freezing. When they attempted to approach, a piercing hum pulsed through the air, so strong it caused one cameraman to collapse. And then they heard it, a deep, resonant voice echoing across the forest, repeating a single phrase, "Do not return." It wasn't electronic, it wasn't human, it came from the woods themselves. By morning their gear was destroyed. Lenses cracked, cards melted, trees around their campsite branded with circular scorch patterns, as if seared from above. Only one corrupted file survived. When stabilized, it showed a hovering, indistinct figure between the trees, its outline matching the same 7-foot form from the Expedition Bigfoot pilot episode, the one that had vanished from archives years earlier. The evidence that forced the show into silence. When Bryce returned home from Mount Hood, shaken but resolute, he believed he finally held the missing piece, something powerful enough to force the truth into daylight. The corrupted file, partially recoverable and barely holding together, showed a figure that didn't belong in the natural order of the world the team thought they were studying. It wasn't a stray animal, a shadow, or a misidentified shape moving through branches. Its outline matched something tied directly to the earliest days of the show, an image from the pilot episode that had mysteriously vanished from network archives long ago. The implication was unavoidable. Whatever they had encountered wasn't new. It had been present from the beginning, and someone had erased the evidence once before. Bryce decided he would not allow it to happen again. Within 48 hours of his return, he reached out to a contact at the Travel Channel, a person he believed he could trust. He told them he had what he called missing proof, the kind of footage that would force a reckoning with everything the series had documented. His plan was simple: hand the file over directly, avoiding intermediaries, hoping that someone higher in the network would see the importance of what they had captured. But the network responded before he could act. First came subtle administrative shifts. Offices temporarily closing for restructuring, cast contracts suddenly put on hold, meetings canceled without explanation. Then came the public announcement. Expedition Bigfoot was entering an indefinite hiatus due to a creative realignment. The phrasing felt hollow, corporate, and designed to shut down questions rather than answer them. That night, Bryce decided to tell the truth publicly before the silence tightened around him. He started a live stream from his personal Instagram account. His voice trembled as he spoke, but he didn't hide what he believed had happened. He said the team was told they were chasing folklore, when in reality, they were being led towards something that was already known to exist, something someone wanted buried. The stream lasted only 9 minutes before it vanished. His account is locked. His posts were wiped. His publicist issued a statement claiming Bryce was taking a mental health break, but a very different story circulated among the crew. Screenshots leaked from internal group chats, messages about unmarked trucks near camp, about files reappearing with new timestamps, about Bryce receiving a call from an unknown number telling him he had shown too much. By the next morning, Expedition Bigfoot had been erased from future Travel Channel scheduling. Reruns removed. Promotions scrubbed clean. Even YouTube interviews featuring Bryce disappeared without comment. The message was unmistakable. The show wasn't shut down because it failed. It was shut down because they succeeded. The anonymous upload, Bryce's final recorded words. In the aftermath of the purge, the internet buzzed with speculation. Fans demanded answers. Former crew members kept silent, and Bryce himself vanished from view. Then, without warning, a strange upload appeared on a small anonymous account, Forest Signal, 1977. The video lasted only 37 seconds, but anyone familiar with Bryce's voice recognized it immediately. He sounded calm, but the resignation in his tone was unmistakable. His opening sentence sent shockwaves through the community. "If you're seeing this, it means they got to me." He did not sound afraid. The footage playing behind his voice wasn't polished or edited. It consisted of fragmented clips from the corrupted file he had tried so hard to protect. Night vision frames trembled violently as a massive shadow moved between trees. The shape distorted like static, as though flickering between physical states. Then a flash of light erupted, sharp enough that listeners later described hearing ringing in their ears, even through speakers. The clip ended abruptly. No conclusion, no explanation. Within an hour, the upload disappeared. Not flagged by YouTube, not removed by the account owner, eliminated by copyright claims from unnamed parties with no public trace. Bryce had not posted it. Someone else had released it for him, or in his place. But for those who had heard Bryce's final words, it didn't feel personal at all. In the audio, Bryce mentioned that whatever they encountered in the forest wasn't alone. The implication wasn't that a single creature was out there, but rather that an entire presence or multiple entities had been observing them long before cameras began rolling. Bryce's final statement, "It was waiting," left a mark that no network statement could erase. The message left behind, and the boundary we weren't meant to cross. The final seconds of the anonymous video solidified a haunting truth. The creature, or entity, they captured was not a solitary figure roaming through the brush. Bryce insisted it belonged to something older, something tied to the land long before cameras, explorers, or researchers ever walked those forests. The distorted figure moving between the trees wasn't depicted as a cryptid fleeing from attention. It moved with assurance, almost as if it understood the devices pointed toward it. What Bryce suggested was far more unsettling. That they weren't the first to observe it. That someone else had known about its presence long before a television crew wandered into those woods, and that someone had been ensuring its existence never reached the public. He hinted that whatever they encountered wasn't just reacting, it was watching, choosing when and how to appear, influencing what the team saw or didn't see. It gave the sense that Expedition Bigfoot had crossed into a territory that didn't tolerate intruders, especially not ones equipped with cameras and contracts. Bryce didn't describe it as a creature hiding from modern eyes. He described it as something patient, something capable of erasing what it wanted erased, something waiting for the right moment to intervene. And in the aftermath of his disappearance, the question left behind wasn't whether Bigfoot existed. It was whether Expedition Bigfoot had stumbled into a secret far larger than their own investigations, a secret guarded not by folklore, but by forces, natural or otherwise, determined to keep it buried. What remains after the silence? As the dust settled, one truth became unavoidable. Whatever Bryce Johnson witnessed during the final months of Expedition Bigfoot was never meant to reach the public. The erased footage, the shadowed vehicles, the altered archives, and the disappearance of an entire season's material told a story far beyond production mishaps or narrative redirection. It suggested interference, coordinated, consistent, and powerful. The silence surrounding Bryce's vanishing echoed louder than any statement the network refused to give. Fans pieced together fragments from crew chats, archived interviews, and that last haunting audio clip. But the bigger picture remained intentionally fractured. The Expedition Bigfoot timeline had been cut, redirected, scrubbed clean, leaving only traces where entire chapters once stood.